I'm Sir Flowbojan Thunderhammer.
And I'm Teflon Frosthammer.
And I'm Cabbage Tidehammer.
And this
is
what? You.
God, that does smell
If
so
Amgard
good.
needs anything, you can't knife a motherfucker and
Alexa's
keep.
gonna be like, that smells horrible.
Yeah.
And the thing that people need to understand essentially about arts and sciences events is that your scores don't matter.
Do you want a black phoenix or a white phoenix?
Jeez, language, man. We're on a
right.
freaking podcast, for fuck's sake.
Mind-blowing experience, right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to WAK, where we discuss topics important to the Amgard community at large and talk with interesting people from around the foam fighting world. And if that didn't sound as exciting as it normally does, it's because Flo's very tired this weekend.
Hey, before we start, I have a very important announcement, and this is huge. Drum roll. That's poison. I'm sorry. See me. That's going to suck. Avi finally got a fucking smartphone.
Yeah, I know, dude.
He called me the day he got it. He was like, "Hey, I got a smartphone now. I got an Android phone." So no more flip phone pictures unless he's just carrying it around as a camera.
Hey, man, it could be his new juke.
I'm really proud of you, Avi.
The hold that the Samsung Juke had on our little friend group in particular,
I know, right?
was nigh impenetrable. I don't know what was up with that.
What the fuck is a Samsung?
Do you
It
remember
was
the
about
itty
that
bitty
thin,
phone that Zeb
and
had?
it spun around like a switchblade.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that sounds like something Zeb would own.
Dude, he got one, and then I had to get one. I was impressionable. Also, it was a cool phone.
I still had, I think, the Nokia brick, and for a long time.
That thing had mileage, man. You know they're making it. They make a new one now.
Yeah.
Like a
I'm
better screen.
legit kind
A
of
new brick?
tempted.
Yeah. The
Weird.
Nokia 3380 or whatever. If you look it up, like you can buy it on Amazon. It's like $50, but it's that old brick phone just updated.
Yeah, I legit.
Like I think
kind
it
of
has
interested.
Spotify on it now or something. Like
Yeah.
it's the same phone. It still has Snake, but also Spotify. It's
Bro,
weird.
honestly, I'm down. I
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
need to be off my phone more often anyway.
Yeah, I've thought about it. No, okay, so we are here to talk about the Insane Crown Posse's most recent gathering. Some of us call it the Gathering of the Kingdoms or the Gathering of the Crowns. Whatever you want to call it. Amgard's big meeting where we change the rules. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. We're here to break that down. Now, I know a lot of other people have done breakdowns of the rules changes. We are going to touch on those a little bit because we have our own opinions on them. But I think Godric did a really good video
Yeah.
with, was it Sir Raven?
Yeah.
Godric-
Using
Heron.
Heron's kind of like TLDR version of it, and it's a really good setup. We should totally link both those things.
Yeah, I should actually pull that up. I have the individual proposals here, but his breakdown is much more concise. So I'll pull that up as well.
Yeah.
We can kind of talk about things as they unfolded. Flo, were you able to watch any of the Gathering of the Crowns?
Unfortunately, I was not.
You
So
mean
I am.
fortunately.
Yeah, fortunately, I am going to be learning about these and commenting on how silly they all seem live.
Yeah.
I actually listened to some of it. I definitely wasn't invited to play League of Legends at the same time, and
No, of course not.
and that kind of stuff, right? So
To be fair, it was the shortest Gathering of the Crowns meeting I think we've ever had. It clocked in at just over 6 hours.
Yep.
So, I mean, listen, the last one I sat in on was 13 hours or 14 hours, so I'm cool with that. You can watch the entire thing on YouTube. I guess we'll put that in the comments below if
Yeah,
you hate
makes
yourself or need to fall asleep to something. It's perfect.
there's actually some legit good content in there.
There
to be
is,
honest.
and also the Rising Winds rep towards the end gets a little goofy.
Yeah,
kinda
it's
fun.
great. It's
I
good.
love that. Let's just go through it piece by piece, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're not gonna go through all the legalese. The first thing that happened was a V9 committee discussion panel. So essentially, we got to meet with the entire V9 committee and ask them questions for a little over an hour, and sort of pose questions to them. Flo, I know you weren't there. Teflon, did you get to hear any of that? Did you have any takeaways?
No, I think I came in when the second proposal for the arrows was being made. So
Okay.
I missed that, and I probably missed the full rules proposal as well.
A little bit, yeah. So my takeaway from it, and again, I was participating in it, but there was a lot of discussion, and I don't remember every piece of conversation. Largely, it's centered around, okay, how to phrase this. The V9 committee did not have a very clear mandate and a very clear scope. So far as I understand it, what we told them in 2019 was investigate possibilities for a V9.
Gotcha.
And they took that and they ran with it, and they've done everything they've done so far. I think they've done a good job.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of concern because reps didn't seem to understand. And when I say reps here, I mean senators and monarchs, just to be clear. They did not understand what it is the V9 committee was doing. There was some concern of like, oh, well, we don't get updates from the V9 committee. Yes, you do. If you go to ampedguard.com/V9, they're right there, and they give you close to a weekly or monthly update.
Yep.
There was a lot of concern that, rules reps weren't talking among one another, and it seemed like some monarchs didn't know what their rules reps were doing. So a large portion of the issue was, and this will be important for the next thing that comes up, a large portion of the issue was that nobody really knew what the V9 committee does, who they report to, or anything like that. And so there was a lot of, I don't want to say like ill will, I think it was just misunderstanding about that. But the first proposal was to kill the V9 committee.
Yep.
So can I pause for a moment?
Absolutely.
I want to just make sure that I understood here. There was some section of people that didn't fully understand what V9 was doing or wanting to accomplish or something like that.
Correct.
And the answer to that was to make a proposal to just disband them instead of talking to them about it?
Well, so the discussion panel was always planned, and the proposal to kill the V9 committee came in afterwards. So it's just kind of coincidence that followed, but it would have come up. So, I mean, a lot of the questions like, hey, you guys have been working on this for 2 years. Why isn't there a V9 yet? And to be honest with you, it takes years to come out with a new version of the game. We were on V6 for
forever,
14 years or something like that. I mean, we've only recently been on V8, and V7 lasted a couple of years, like 4 to 6 years.
I don't remember the timeline now.
So, I mean, the takeaway from that is that 2 years is not enough time to come up with a new version of the game. And
right.
They explained that.
Especially the way they're going about it, which I think is a fairly good way. Better than the past in a way.
Yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and talk about the vote to kill the V9 committee, because these two things are going to be pretty closely related, even though they did not necessarily arise out of the same, means. Killing the V9 committee, part of the issue was, at least alleged by some kingdoms, was that the V9 committee had overstepped its mandate. By doing play testing, they weren't allowed to do, or they weren't explicitly approved to do play testing. They also weren't explicitly denied to do play testing. I want to be very clear about that.
Bro, like, I can play test stuff at my local park as a champion. Like, I don't see where this is a thing.
Yeah, it seemed a bit disingenuous to me, to be perfectly fair. Also, I want to just apologize again to the V9 committee. Some of the treatment that you got in that, I think, was unfair, just the way that you were spoken to. But it ended up in your favor, so that's good news. But I think as volunteers, you deserve to be treated better. So I do want to say again, that was a little bit shameful on the part of the comm, myself included, because I was there. So one of the allegations was they had overstepped their mandate, even though their mandate was never clear, by playtesting. And then it became, well, what is playtesting? What's not playtesting? Effectively, it goes down to it goes out to that like helping hand thing that One Joe had mentioned before. Now, I never viewed that as playtesting. That is data collection, and we can really get semantic and say, well, data collection and playtesting are the same thing. But at the end of the day, what I believe, and I think what One Joe said, that he was trying to find out was, given an ability that can be used on yourself or on other players, do you choose to use that altruistically or selfishly? And that's the data he was trying to collect. That was, helping hand was never going to be an ability that made it in any of our rule sets, so far as I understood it. It was just, how do you use this given the opportunity? So that to me didn't feel like playtesting so much as like how do players choose to use abilities. But again, that was one of the, I guess, allegations that was laid down, was that they had overstepped their mandate. At the end of the day, we did not vote to kill V9.
Yay.
Yeah, and my reasoning for it, I told the kingdom in a post, I said, it takes years to create a new game. We are not anywhere close to getting a V9. There's no harm in letting them continue while we improve V8. We can do both of those things. It's two separate teams.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, at the end of the day, that's what it came down to. We did agree to give them a more refined scope so they know what they can and can't do. So hopefully, I said as much in the comm. I said I feel like we've set V9 up for failure by not giving them a clearly defined role.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like that would have been the first step. If your feeling is that this organization that you have lended some bit of power or credibility to do a thing is doing something outside of what you feel like they were set up to do, and then when examined, you say, "Well, we we define this very broadly. I would think the first step would be, hey, so you've been doing these things. We're going to narrow this scope. That would have been my first step rather than just voting to...
This is also from a perspective of, like, this is a kind of static group of people where this is very much not. And monarchs and senators coming in and out
all
in
of the
sometimes
time.
6 months and then not at the same pace and things like that creates kind of a chaotic atmosphere in this aspect. So it's very hard to do that, I think.
Yeah, there was at least one monarch in that meeting who said, basically, I've had a week to pick all of this up, and I'm doing my best.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is a rounding endorsement for the senator system. If you don't adopt it already in your kingdom, please consider it. There was one other thing about the V9, kill V9, whatever, that I do think is important to address. There was some concern that people had been excluded from doing these tests. So despite the fact that the tests were outside of their mandate, it was still leveled that because some parks had been disallowed to play in those tests, that it was also violating like a contractual agreement. One Joe and his team pointed out that more or less everyone who submitted to play was approved. There was one, I'm going to call it a principality, and I'm going to have to explain that. There was one principality that was excluded from playing, and it was because it's the Golden City, which, right, it is... And one Joe used this terminology. I don't think he's completely wrong. It is a bit of a meme principality. There's like 1.75 active members in that principality. They do have an active contract. However, and this isn't the business of the comm, they are in violation of their own corpora by being such a small principality. They are not allowed to be a principality at that size. But the point was made correctly, albeit very pulling at hairs correctly. It was made that they are a park, they are a group with a contract. They should not have been disallowed from playing. But, now that we know that, I think they should be allowed to participate. That's the easy way around that. Like, it sucks that they were denied, meme kingdom or not, but like, hey, just let them in now that we've had this discussion and it'll be all good.
Yeah, if you want some more information on that principality, by the way, look back to our episode with Delos. Delos is a member of that principality, and I think that we had a very short conversation with him about what that was.
By the way, Delos just formally retired.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey,
he made it
understandably, but
so
it's a shame.
He was a member of the Golden Kingdom, but isn't now. What does that say about the Golden Kingdom?
0.75.
Yeah, right.
I did not know that, Delos. I wish you the best, brother.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your years of teaching that you've given the game to.
Yep. So thanks, and also thanks for coming on before you did retire. I think it's good to have that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame we didn't get Arthon on because they retired at the same time. But I say if you wander around bars in Texas, you might still find them. They say if you wander the bars in Texas.
No, there's a specific bar. They have their seat.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, they do.
I like him as a Texas cryptid.
Fair.
But yeah, so that was V9. We chose to keep V9. Again, I feel bad about how the V9 team was treated. I think some of the concerns were valid to a point. I think a lot of them were not, and I'm glad that we're keeping them around. So that's sort of the first two agenda points, and just kind of recap those. We did authorize them, like I said, to have a new refined scope, and there is a timeline that they put out. So I think 2024 is when we can expect some real play tests, as we would consider them play tests.
Yeah, I want to point out too before we move on that my objections that I made to this earlier were not objections because I'm all in favor of keeping the V9 committee or all in favor of damning them. It was the process that was used that I had a problem with. There are probably some pieces that, for sake of time, because this is an hour-long podcast, we don't have time to talk about. But it seems silly to create an organization, have problems with what that organization is doing, and instead of addressing those problems, make a motion to just completely disband them. That is the... Again, I'm missing... If any of you were involved in this and you want to comment down below, I'd love to hear what it was, but that seems nuts to me.
I don't disagree with you. Like, I actually vehemently agree with you. However, if you don't feel that they were acting in good faith at all, then dissolution may actually have been the answer.
That's a good point. If you think that they're not acting in good faith at all, then this would have been an appropriate step.
I don't feel like the argument to kill it was in good faith, to be completely honest with you. and many people said during the meeting that they did believe the V9 committee was acting in good faith, even if they had made a mistake, by not allowing the Meme Kingdom or whatever, that they were still acting in good faith and just didn't believe the Golden Kingdom was a valid kingdom, which I could make the argument that it's not. But so yeah, that all in the wash. V9 is still continuing, and hopefully
with Delos not in that kingdom now, does that mean they only have 0.7 members that are going to
I mean, basically. The next thing was the big sweep of rules revisions. Do we want to get into that now, or do we want to do everything else and then get to
Let's
that?
do everything else
Okay.
first, because I think that's the one that we will go over on if we don't.
Yeah, I think
attention
you're
to.
right. So realistically, there was one other big proposal that passed. We elected a new rules rep organizer, which is the same as the old rules rep organizer. Manama, Manamama, Mana. However we chose to call you by the end of that. Manama, congratulations.
Honestly, this is a section that I really enjoyed because both the recommendations for or whatever candidates.
Nathan and I don't remember Nathan's persona name.
I
and I'm
can't
very
remember
sorry.
it either.
And Manama or Craig.
Both of them had very good points made, and that is definitely something to listen to if you're a rules-oriented person, because this is where the rules rep is going to be going, right? This is their kind of plan. Both of them had 2 to 3 year plans and things like that. One of the big takeaways for me was listening to Manama talk about the rules changes that came in are a little chaotic, and they're not all following the tenets of what V8 was founded on. And that can be a problem, and I can point out one of them that is kind of a problem and not at the same time when we get to the rules section, and I'll bring that up later.
Okay, yeah, put a pin in that. But yeah, he did speak to some tenets that he believed were important for the philosophy of the game going through V8. And I think that was pretty cool. I also think Nathan did a great job presenting. It would be cool if those two could work together. I have no idea how the rules rep stuff works. If you could take an assistant, Nathan seems like a cool dude, but I don't know if you're allowed to. So I wish them both the best. I think they were both pretty good candidates.
What's this person's name? Is it Monanen?
Manama.
Manama. No,
But
Monanen.
in the meeting, there was some fuckery
Shenanigans,
involving
yeah.
the name. It was XCOM chair started calling Manamama. And then that just, of course, when you open the floodgate,
Did he do
like
it
that,
with Johnny Bravo too?
Yeah.
No.
Manama.
No. But it ended up getting kind of goofy. Hey, listen, have your fun however you can. As long as it's not hurting anybody, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
The big proposal that passed was the Amtgard International funding agreement.
Yeah, big ups on that one.
I mean, not a lot of drama here. The thing just passed. Like, it was pretty open and shut.
What's the very TLDR?
Yeah,
for
you
what
were
that
you
is?
were the one that helped create this, or were one of the architects of it. So what's going on there?
There were 4 or 5 people, and if I could remember names, I would give everyone credit. I was not the sole person who worked on this. I do want to shout out Megiddo, who I think wrote the first draft. Obviously, Amtgard International's legal counsel, who helped out with the language. The XCOM chair.
It's JP, and then
Sir Gavin Goldmoon
yeah.
also helped. And as well as a host of other people. Listen, I'm going to forget names, but there were a lot. So effectively, what this does is it limits the amount that a kingdom owes to Amtgard International to $500. So from $2,000 to $500.
Also, $2,000 as a donation rather than
Right now, it is a licensing fee. There are not. There are some teeth for kingdoms who don't pay. They're not super sharp. It is not a hey, you don't pay, you lose your kingdom status. It is a very sliding scale. There are also there are provisions in that budgeting proposal for emergency funding. Effectively, how that works is the COM can request money. There has to be an emergency meeting. You can only do this 4 times per year, and you can only request as much as the initial revenue was in each one of those meetings. So if we were, for example, to say, another lawsuit happened, we're going to authorize this, everybody needs to pay another $500. That would be the max. Now, you could do that 4 times a year. Theoretically, as I understand it, the maximum would be, I think, $2,500 if we had 4 emergency meetings and all 4 of those meetings received the 75% approval by the COM to be passed. So it's extremely unlikely that ever happens.
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
Yeah. So just to clarify and reiterate, I guess it's $500 just as the fee.
Yes.
And then you can then, as the COM, vote for $500 again 4 different times coming up with the 2,000 plus the base
Yes.
500, so that's 2,500.
Yeah.
Also, AI can't just do it. The
No.
COM has to do it, and that's a big distinction that I think people might get lost on.
Correct. The monarchs have to vote to do this, and it has to pass. And to hit that $2,500 figure, it would have to pass 4 times with a 75% majority each time. I mean, again, this is like we get sued again. Kind of stuff. We have to fight for our trademark. So ideally never used. But, I mean, it may be. Can never say for certain. Now, the other thing, too, is that as part of that, the Amtgard International Board of Directors has a fixed budget of $11,000, that $500 per kingdom that they can spend. They cannot budget for more than that. And if we do an emergency meeting where we approve more funding, that cannot be used to pay for the normal budgetary stuff that is already accounted for.
Oh, interesting.
So that means if AI misspends its money and they're $800 short, tough titties, you need to fundraise.
Yeah, start
And
selling
also-
some Krispy Kreme out in front of Walmart.
Yeah, and find out who misappropriated those funds, and
Boy, they make it back quick if it did it over here in Knoxville.
Yeah, right.
So that's the meat and potatoes of it. There's, I mean, read the full proposal if you want to know the teeth. I mean, worst case scenario, if you go a very long time without paying, yes, you can lose your kingdom status. Sorry, but that's what licensing fees are. The game does cost money at some point, and $500 is kind of the point where, like, eventually somebody in your kingdom will just pony it up, dude.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed this a very little bit when we had our AI discussion, but our game does quite a lot. We have a lot of people that, are putting time in to get a new rule book. They don't get paid. We have a lot of people that donate time on our Circle of Monarchs. They don't get paid. But we do have some flat costs that we have to have as a game.
The Orc, the Amped Wiki, any of the rulebook composition stuff.
Basically our web tools,
Yeah.
effectively, right?
So that's what this is going towards. And this is not a evil shadow AI government controlling everything. Like we discussed in that episode, this is your Circle of Monarchs.
Yeah.
This is your kingdom's representative, whether that be a senator or your monarch, and all of the other kingdoms' representatives going in and voting on stuff. AI is below them, just in terms of like power hierarchy, because the COM appoints AI BOD.
Well, I mean, it is just a scaled-up version of your local kingdom, right? You have a Circle of Monarchs in your own kingdom, I assume. You also have a board of directors in your own kingdom.
That one principality doesn't.
Yeah, you also have a board of directors in your own kingdom, right? And that board of directors, what do? They handle the mundane legal shit. That's that's the separation, right? Those are not equal bodies. They do different things. Now they both have to, get together on certain things. At least in Winter's Edge, the event costs have to be signed on by the treasurer of the BOD, and there's things like that.
Yeah.
And there is some kind of sharing of responsibilities there, but by and large, they are different bodies for different things. Now we also elected some new AIBOD at-large board members. We did talk about this in the episode with Amtgard International. We elected Chewy, and I don't remember who the other person was. I'm very sorry. The person I voted for as my second did not get in. But Chewy was great. I did vote for him as well. We also elected the XCOM chair. That's Sir Gavin again. Congratulations. He did a great job. So he's going to be continuing for a couple of years.
I actually really like the way he ran it, too.
Yeah, he's a pretty good guy. Like he's pretty amicable. He's pretty reasonable. I don't think I disagree with him too much on anything. Now, this brings us to the rules changes.
Oh, cool.
Man, sorry. I keep getting a whiff of that, like, that beard stuff that you've got in.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk?
Yeah,
about
we could.
We have a sort of sponsor, I guess.
Yeah, so here's what happened. Sir Gillen has a relative that runs a grooming store, for lack of a better term.
No, don't call it that. It's a beard store. It's for grooming beards.
It's like beard wax, beard oil. We'll have some links to in the description down there. It is called the Man brand. There's a lot of different scents and things like that you can get. We actually got several samples here. And
Jeff smells like a cigar box, but in a good way.
He does, one of the scents is humidor, and Jeff put that on, and he now smells like a cigar shop.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I don't even smoke cigars. I really like them, but I love the smell of them.
I keep getting whiffs of it. And I'm like,
yeah, right.
Tobacco. Yeah, we'll put a discount code in the comments below. It's just the weird.
Yeah, it's 15% off in the discount code below. So, we have just recently got these. I actually put some in earlier today. I personally went with business as usual.
I haven't picked one yet because if I get something oily on my hands, I will convulse until I get to wash it off.
He will. So. But yeah, so check in the description for that, especially if you're looking for
like the lumberjack one.
Yeah, the lumberjack one was kind of cool.
Tree.
The check the description, especially if you're looking for something to put into your beard. Beard length doesn't matter. It's always good to have some beard oil, beard wax.
Beard length never matters. It's beard girth.
Yeah.
I hate that I said that. God. Okay, let's talk. Yeah, we'll put the discount code in the comments below and the website if you want to check them out. But let's talk about the rules changes.
So, can you give a quick TLDR on how that process went?
No. Okay, yeah.
That was really just a very forceful no.
So the big block of rules changes, the one that probably everybody has sort of parsed through, was voted on as a package. Now, the way that worked was if a single proposal, or if the package vote failed, then we would go through every proposal to vote on them individually. And I think nobody wanted to do that.
That sounds exhausting.
Yeah, there were like 50. And we were taking like 20 minutes a vote at this point. So, I don't know, somebody who's good at math, tell me how long that is. But it was a pretty extensive discussion before we passed that package. Now, there were a couple of other individual pieces that we did vote on, like the paladin symbol changes and a couple of individual class items as well that we voted yes or no to specifically. But the large package is the one that has like the arrow changes and a lot of changes like mechanics, extraordinary enchantments, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. All right.
So let's talk about. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this.
I think just going down Heron's thing is probably the easiest way to go.
Yeah, I have that here somewhere. I swear I had it.
I believe you.
Now I have it twice. So we can go through Heron's piece of info. So first off, I want to point out that all of these changes are now in a playtesting capacity. So when we say that this passed, it is not technically part of the rulebook. It is a separate addendum that you can download from Amthgard's website that you can begin playtesting. At the next Gathering of the Crowns, or the Insane Crown Posse, as I'm going to continue calling it, there will be a second vote whether or not to add those things to the rulebook. So if you hate these changes, if you are pissed about your arrows, like I know so many people are, even though arrows are already bad, if you don't like it, tell your rules rep, tell your senator, tell your monarch, and make sure they know that going into the next meeting. That's all I'll say on that, because I did vote to pass these. So, first bit of changes. Paladins wear gold sashes. Anti-paladins wear silver. Knights can still wear phoenixes of the appropriate color, but they must be 2 of them on opposite sides of the body, and they must be at least 5 inches across.
So, it's good to point out that you can almost do shoulder to shoulder or front to back, basically, with that, the way it's worded. My only minor problem with this is that the Reeves, who got Paragon Reeve and a gold with a silver trim sash, and monsters with the silver sash, kind of get screwed here a little bit. But overall, I think it's a better move. The only issue I have, aside from that, is that gold is kind of easy to confuse with yellow, and silver is really easy to confuse with gray
and white. Yeah.
And white. So that's going to be a bit of a problem, I feel like.
Yeah, that was where I went with it as well. Is people aren't going to go out and pick up the most golden sash ever.
The problem is sashes alone is kind of a problem when we start looking at colorblind problems and things like that too, and people who can't tell shades very well, which is me.
I wore my red shirt today.
Yeah, right.
Lucas,
I know it's green.
Lucas, is that a healer over there, or is it something else?
Yeah, it's a scout. I will point out that Paragon Reeve and Paragon Monster, I about said Paragon Ghost, are... Listen.
I want it to be a thing now. We would go through the whole sash presenting ceremony, but we wouldn't actually put a sash on them.
Yeah.
We would have our audience plants to do things like, "Oh, it's so beautiful. Who made that?"
Yeah. So I will point out that neither of those are accounted for in our actual rules of play. So there is not an allowance for Paragon Reeve. I also want to point out that if you have a Paragon Reeve sash, there are other accommodations for Reeves that if you wear your Paragon Reeve sash with, I think you're fine. So like there is a striped, striped or blocked or whatever, tunic.
I mean, you can just go to the next one because this is part of it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. The next one is Reeves wear striped garb or have Reeves sticks or have black and white striped or checkerboarded sashes. So I would imagine that if you have a Reeve stick and your Paragon Reeve sash, you're good. I'm not going to confuse the guy carrying a PVC stick with a barber pole design on it. I'm not going to confuse that guy for a paladin.
Yeah. This is something that SCA does as well that I really, really like.
I think the Reeve stick, Godric and Raven point out a lot of good points with the Reeve stick. Like you can interrupt fights and stuff like that with it. And
make barriers. And again, watch their video. They do.
It's a really We're gonna try and blow through these and not get hung up on them.
I do understand that people are mad about their Paragon sashes. I would point out that if you're wearing the accompanying garb, you can still wear them fine without it being an issue. As an example, if you are a Paragon monster, who even? But if you are and you're wearing the appropriate monster garb,
silver and silver trim.
Yeah, I mean, if you're wearing the appropriate garb and you also have your Paragon monster sash, I think that's okay. And if you don't have those identifying symbols, it's going to be it should be clear.
Well, the symbols are only if you're a knight.
That's true. Well, yeah, you're right. Either way,
this is why I wish they were doubled. So it's 2 gold sashes for paladin and 2 silver sashes for anti-paladin to kind of help with the confusion between wizards and monks and things like that too.
I could have sash bandoliers.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know what I think every class should have a distinct symbol that they are required to wear.
I'm not opposed to this.
And honestly, Amthgard International, if you want to make some money, make those as patches that you can iron on to sashes.
Yeah, $3 to $5 patches to get them.
Yeah, and I mean, still release the STL files or the whatever files so people can embroider their own if they want to. But for people that don't want to, I mean, you can just...
Or just the stencil to
I would buy them from you. Amthgard International, I would buy them all right now.
I would too. And there's a lot of concern about, like, hey, we're running out of sash colors. And combining colors, like using 2 colors on a sash, becomes an issue.
Mm-hmm.
All of those can be completely avoided if you have, like you have for paladins and anti-paladins, if you have a big 5-inch symbol that needs to be in 2 places, hey, warrior here, I know what you are. I see the little sword icon. Yeah, exactly, right?
Archer is just a bow and arrow, or just a bow.
Yeah, I mean, basically every video game already uses class symbols, and it's been proven that those work to identify quickly what that person is and can do. It can work.
Druid just says cheat.exe.
Hey. Be careful.
Right.
Also, there's another cheat.exe in this, so we'll get to that.
So next up, I'm going to skip past that, but anyway, to say all of that is to say you can still wear your sashes. I don't think it's that big of a deal or as big a deal as people are making about it, but I do understand that it sucks. Synthetic armor can get a +1 bonus for Gambison beneath it. This is nothing.
I feel like this is kind of nothing, and Godric and Raven make a point of it too, but if someone can use it, great. Like, this is just a non-issue, basically. So it's a way to get a bonus to a 1 point of synthetic. And if you're wearing 1 point of synthetic and wearing a Gambison also, good on you.
Yeah, I was going to say,
you don't live in Tennessee.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Yeah, to clarify for new players, this does not mean synthetic armor can go to 3 points now. It is still capped at 2, but if you have synthetic armor that only counts as 1 point, you can wear a Gambison and get a second.
Yeah.
Magic balls can't use duct tape as a cover.
God, I'm so fucking mad that this was part of it. There's zero reason, but I guess good on them for getting a clarification since it was brought up.
Yeah, Summon Dead works on players who are at their respawn rather than just their base. For example, a golem or a player next to Heart of the Swarm.
This is actually a minor buff because currently in the normal rules, right, you can only use it on someone who is already at base or who has not moved. So this allows someone to move to their respawn. Again, those two, I think, are the only ones. There may be another one that I may be forgetting, but this allows them to move to another spot that you can pick them up from. So this allows the healers who are resbotting at spawn or normal Nirvana or whatever to move up also because of Heart of the Swarm or something like that. So this is a minor buff to Summon Dead.
Yeah. Adaptive Blessing may be worn alongside EX protection enchantments, so extraordinary protection enchantments. That's fine. Nobody takes Adaptive Blessing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's fine. Essence Graft only limits players from receiving magical enchantments from other players, meaning that players may still use their extraordinary enchantments on themselves while enchanted with Essence Graft.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, right. So this could be. This is going to be one of those that's going to take a minute to find out if this susses out to be a problem or not. But it could be. Essence Graft wasn't exactly the best on warriors if they had armor, because typically the stack is something to do with armor. wounds kill and whatever your stack meta is currently, because there's the big stack or the smaller stacks for these kinds of things depending upon what your dispel magic meta is. But this allows warriors with armor to actually use their ancestral armor and stuff like that with Essence Graft. So this could have more combinations of enchantments show up. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean the already combining enchantments with other stuff is a bit.
Yeah, I'm not a big I will use it to abuse it basically, but I'm not a big fan of.
I mean, but if you're a wizard looking to take someone out, now you have to try and account for all of the different stacking effects that they may have and in which order they apply. Sure, fine. This is probably the big one that everybody's pissed about. Zinc is no longer an approved material for arrow blunting. This means no pennies. Tough. Yeah,
so GotC and things like that that you have bought currently. I'm guessing Gorg may eventually change. We'll see. I don't know. I don't want to speak for him either.
Can I ask why?
So
zinc is a fragile material that does break.
Yeah.
Sure.
The new recommendation is a steel or a stainless steel disc or washer, specifically non-zinc.
Yeah.
I mean, just pennies break over time. Like you can, if you are bored, you can take a penny and mash it against this table and bend it until it breaks in half. I've done that in school.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember a story from Mystic Glade back in the day where someone shot an arrow and it hit a tree, and the penny inside was broken into 4 perfect pieces. Like the arrow stuck into the tree.
Yeah.
Then when they ended up taking the cover off and everything, it was just broken there. So this isn't a question of that they break. It's just
this to me is kind of the wrong way to go about fixing arrows, because like everyone's saying like DAG and GotC and things are safer and safe arrows, which I agree with. Don't get me wrong, right? But if we're going to change arrow tech to be safer, I think our better bet is to change it so that we have basically DAG's arrows anyway. We already have problems with people's ocular cavities getting busted and things like that with these
and
arrows.
Arrows bouncing back.
Yeah, arrows bouncing back and stuff like this. So maybe we should change the actual arrow design instead of like a minor thing that is an undetectable change. Like
you can't prove.
Yeah, and Godric and Raven bring up a point that like who's gonna know, and I would encourage if you've got a Reeve with a sack basically to tell them that I'm going to cut apart one arrow to find out if you have a penny blunt on one arrow, and if you do, none of your arrows pass.
So make a decoy arrow, everybody.
Yeah, right
now.
Or get it to the point where you have a arrow that is cut in half and shows your build on it. Now you can cheat and do the steel blunt build with one arrow and then have pennies on it the others, which is not great, but at least there's a step to show that you know how to do it correctly.
Well, so, okay, I want to be the guy here who says the thing that no one likes. Amthgard arrows just aren't safe in general.
Yeah.
Like, it is the least safe part of our game, probably right up there with polearms, if I'm honest.
Polearms might be more, but that might be prevalence.
Yeah. I would say we don't see a lot of arrows here. But Amthgard arrows are either the first unsafest thing in our game or the second unsafest thing in our game, so I don't think that this goes far enough to correct that problem.
Yeah.
It is unprovable. And also, we don't make our rules based off of what other games manufacturers are producing.
Right.
Even if he does make cross-game stuff, and I do like GotC stuff, do not get me wrong, Gorg was on the podcast, he's a great dude.
Mm-hmm.
This becomes his problem to change.
Yeah, and I mean, we actually asked him in that episode. I re-listened to it recently because I swear this is a question that came up.
Yeah?
Like, if they change the rules for weapons in DAG, would you lobby against that? And I think at the time he said, no, this is just a thing that I do. And I think this is the same thing, right? If the rules change, you change with it.
Yep.
Does it mean that all of your arrows are now invalid? Yeah, kind of. If someone really wants to get in and check, no one's going to do that, I don't think. I
encourage them to.
I mean, do I think we should be remaking our arrows to be safer anyway? Yes, I do. It both sucks that people have to remake their arrows and sucks that it doesn't go far enough and sucks that our arrows still aren't safe. It's kind of a rock and a hard place. I don't know how you solve this problem without just...
It just our arrow tech needs to be restructured. Like, listen, I'm one of the biggest fans of the Gamma Ball arrows because they're fast and they bounce and they do good things from an archer perspective, but like maybe not super safe.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a tough spot to be in. Again, I know there's a Winter's Edge event coming up, and we're not using those rules because nobody has time to react to it. But I do think long term people should be remaking their arrows.
Oh, 100%.
Next up in that same vein, arrows that allow for more than 28 inches of draw must have a draw stop of some kind to prevent them from being drawn more than 28 inches.
This is a good step of how to help fix a problem.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a big problem because I don't think there's a lot of people who's getting like 36-inch arrows and then...
Thanks, Windows.
Yeah, and then drawing to 32 inches or something like that. I mean, they're there. I did it when I was younger, to be honest, but because I could get more power out of the 15-pound bow that my mom bought me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
but in general, I don't think a lot of people are doing that. And I've seen a lot of people already have the arrow stops on them because they cross-game and stuff like that. So,
Yeah,
this,
I think
again,
it's a
this is a good step to do so.
Yeah. Speaking of Windows, this podcast is brought to you by Windows. Windows 11. Go fuck yourself. So yeah, I'm good with draw stops. That makes sense. Javelins got a huge
So
buff.
this is a really cool one.
All scab, baby.
Yeah, so they're all shield crushing and armor breaking now when thrown. Very specifically when thrown.
Yeah, you can't just poke with
So
a
this is
javelin.
a big buff to all classes that use javelins. Well, I wouldn't say a big buff. It's an interesting buff to all classes that can use them.
I want to make, and I was telling Jeff this earlier, but Flo, I think you'll get a lot more joy out of this. I want to make the RX-782 Gundam shield, the big coffin-shaped shield, and have like 6 javelins clipped onto either side of the punch grip,
Yeah.
so that I can just carry them with the shield and pop one off, throw it, pop one off, throw it, and just be a monster.
Remind me how shield crushing works with.
3 hits to the shield with the shield crushing thing.
Yeah, and it breaks.
Okay, so
It doesn't have to be the same source either.
Yeah.
yeah.
If I throw one, Jeff throws one, I throw one, that's cumulative. You've lost your shield.
Okay, so what I saw people doing, getting a foot away from someone and just like kind of
That
flicking
counts.
it, and that will
Yeah.
and that'll count. But I mean, if you have to do it 3 times, then there's still time elapsing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like holding 3 javelins. Yeah,
Same here.
right.
Yeah. I mean, before javelins were pretty fucking worthless, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like now I think they have
This is a cool
legit-
buff.
Yeah, I think they have a legit place on the field now.
It gave
so-
a warrior some range.
Well, I mean, realistically, to me, the javelins were basically like, can I get the caster to move their feet,
yeah.
and then I'll get them right.
Yeah, they were
now
fodder.
they kind of have a different use. They have that use still, which is good, and they have a little bit of an engagement before like melee happens.
Yeah, you
kinda
can try to
use.
soften your target up, especially as a
'Cause, bro,
barbarian.
yeah, like with it armor breaking, then anyone who's not a paladin or warrior or anti-paladin, you have completely broken that set of armor on whatever you hit if
Yeah.
you hit them.
Mm-hmm.
So next up, Avi,
Yeah.
good job getting this passed. Siege weapons are allowed in any game with permission of the game runner and can be destroyed through
Methods.
methods
Is that related to Muppets?
through Muppets they prescribe.
There we go, yeah.
Methods they prescribe. Okay, I'm just going to start back from the top. That was ruined. Siege weapons are allowed in any game with the permission of the game runner and can be destroyed through methods they prescribe rather than being affected by weapon destroying as other weapons are. Meaning you can no longer just run up and hit a siege weapon a bunch of times to kill it. You can make it so you have to take a torch to the ballista or whatever.
Burning 1, burning 2.
Some sort of game mechanic to kill it if the game runner
Did
decides to do it.
Avi really get that added in?
I have no idea.
Because it sounds like something that he would
Yeah.
submit to have added
He's
in.
our siege weapon guy, so I just assume, Either way, he should be pretty happy about it. Anybody can post when wounded, regardless of their ability to take a knee.
So this is kind of one of those things that I think everyone already did to begin with, but technically, by the rules as written currently, again, not with play testing withstanding, right? It's only if you have a medical condition that you can opt for this thing. But
prove
yeah, right,
that I don't.
right, exactly. Also, like, hey, bro, my knee hurts today. That's a medical condition enough for me. So, like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to take a knee.
Yeah.
Yeah, the posting stuff was the biggest problem when you would be in situations where you would have someone that would post sometimes and would not post at other times. So I was able to make strategic decisions in this hypothetical on whether or not I was going to post based on what my opponent, Cabbage, was throwing at me at that time.
Javelins mostly.
Yeah, to
Shoot.
the
Shoes.
so
We had fun this weekend.
so yeah, it was and I think that I'm fine with all of that. That was quite some time back that was a problem, and I don't think that it's as big of a deal anymore.
I mean, anything in our rule book that makes me have to ask you if you have a medical disability is probably not a good thing to have in
Yeah,
our rule
right.
book. So, I'm fine with it. It's good. Okay, Jeff, you're gonna have to explain this to me because I'm too stupid.
Okay.
Traits take effect before immunities, which take place before resistances. If you are immune to command, you will not use your blessing against harm when awe is cast on you.
Okay. So, we'll use the example here. So, blessing against harm protects you from, I don't remember the exact wording, but from a thing that would cause you to do something you don't want, basically.
Okay.
Right? And awe is one of those things. But if you're already immune to it, what it would currently do is it would go ahead and pop your blessing
okay.
against harm. So, it makes it to where it's almost useless, in a way. But if you have the immunity now, or through a trait or some other fashion, it won't pop that blessing against harm anymore because you're already immune to it. Now, this is, I think, where some people played it that way because it kind of logically makes sense, but rules as written, it's actually cleaner what the rules are currently than trying to remember, because now the caster has to know how you're immune to it, whether you have these resistances or immunities or things like this to blow off this blessing against harm. It's a one more layer to do so.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm kind of picking at it a little bit, but it's really kind of a side update. I think it's like whether or not you like it this way or whether or not you like it the way that it currently is really what this one boils down to.
Yeah.
I think one of the good ones was, let's say you're a monk, you have stone skin, and you a fireball gets thrown at you, right? And then you spellball block it with your fist. That would be a hit to an arm.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So you would take 1 point from stone skin because that's not you. Right, that's the stone skin interrupting the thing, but you also have an ability that's a trait that is interrupting it as well. So now it favors the defenders instead of favoring the attackers.
Okay.
In effect,
I think this is one of those things we're gonna have to see.
I think it's such an edge case thing that like people misunderstand it and probably play it this way already.
Yeah,
that
that's true.
It just depends on like how like really into the rules your kingdom is and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Players may repair all armor in a location by spending 60 seconds at their base, like they can already repair weapons, bows, and shields.
In a location. So
yeah.
it's not like I get 60 seconds and I get head to toe back. It's just my chest or my arm or my leg.
So if you had
left arm, left leg.
Yeah, I was going to say if you had 1, 2, 3 areas that need repaired, you would have to spend 3 minutes in base.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, whatever.
No, this is just a quality of life change. That's good. That makes sure, because like this is one of those things that anybody could have put in their game as a game mechanic, but now that it's there, it's kind of there all the time, which it honestly should be.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not using something like ancestral armor, which you want to keep up, it's probably quicker to take a death, to be honest, if you have enough that needs repaired. But for the people that do want to keep their ancestral armor and they don't have somebody who can resurrect them, or they don't have the time
greater res them.
Yeah, greater res them. I mean, it's whatever. It's fine. Song of Survival cannot trigger twice on the same life if you keep chanting it.
So this is something that people who are really good at Bard understand more than those who are not. But
I will say I have seen this used in the way that they are referring to, and it has caused major issues, like major stoppage in a game. So I think this fixes it to be how it should be.
I think this is how it was meant to be. But because people were taking things very literally when they were made the clarifications, which they should be, it allowed for you to do Song of Survival, chant Song of Survival, quote-unquote die, get sent into insubstantial, but continue to chant Song of Survival and say a scout tracks you out of the insubstantial that it imparts onto you. Because you're still chanting Song of Survival, you can then die again and then continue to, and then go back into insubstantial, and then the process can go over and over again.
Yeah,
right?
so as long as you keep chanting, you can effectively never die.
Right. So this fixes that to what I think was meant to be, is that it was just a one-stop, oh, dead, never mind, I'm insubstantial, go back to base or whatever, and then come back out. So now if you get tracked out, you can't continue to chant Song of Survival. That life, it's been used, period. So it's only one trigger.
Yeah, okay.
Which I think is for the best.
It's how it's supposed to be. I think it was just fixing a...
It was a quest, killer, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, if you were in a quest format, that thing could ruin an entire quest if you weren't ready for it.
Yeah. You don't have to stay away from dead players when affected by agoraphobia, awe, or terror.
So this is one which is, I think, for the best. However, this is where I think some of the tenets that Manama was talking about is kind of weird with. You can make an argument that those are all ongoing effects and not states. So there's a difference there. However, if you hit a barbarian with a pinning arrow that stops them and they go fight after death, they are still stopped.
Yeah.
But if you hit them with a ongoing effect, at least with these 3 specifically, or 4, because insult is also added in the next line, then it doesn't stay on them. So this is not exactly an inconsistency, but it kind of is an inconsistency, and it's something that I'd like to see looked at a little bit more, I think. It may be fine to keep them separate this way, but I don't know. It's something that's interesting for sure.
I could see it ending up in some weird edge case scenarios where you get hit with agoraphobia and then there's like 10 dead people around you.
This
and
is
you sort of have to ping
thing.
pong.
Well, this is the thing is that if you agoraphobia a healer, they couldn't res anybody currently.
Yeah.
Because they have to stay away from all players, and that included dead players in the rules as written currently. And this makes it to where if you agoraphobia a healer, they could go to a spot where there's a dead player but no one else around them, so they could res that player.
This is interesting. I was watching, and our current rules rep is making changes to this document as I read it.
Yeah, I saw that.
He's just clarifying a few things. It's nothing that we need to cover. Insult ends immediately after the caster dies.
Again, this is basically the same thing we were just talking
This
about.
has major patch notes 1.12.1. Doomlord Kazak's corrupted blood will no longer last when you go to the auction house. Like, yeah, that should have been fixed a while ago.
Well, I mean, kind of all of these things had, but because currently, like,
nice
again,
reference, by the way.
Yeah, right.
I was playing when that happened.
Deep cut. Oh no, hey, double check me. I'm pretty sure that patch is correct. I'm like 99% sure I nailed that. Or I'm like maybe 1 point, like,
somewhere in
0.00, 0.0.0.1 off. But yeah, I mean, this just fixes a problem that.
Yeah.
Whoops.
So now we got kind of another really interesting change here.
Yeah, and again, barbarians get the big benefit out of this. Wound and kill trigger abilities can trigger outside of melee combat specifically.
So this means that as a barbarian, I can throw a javelin from 40 feet away, nail somebody, kill them, adrenaline. Yeah, also brutal strike.
Yeah,
because that is a wound trigger, not kill trigger.
Right.
So you can curse them. That being said, it's outside of melee combat specifically, which is kind of vague, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, you made a good point about this when we were talking about it.
So there's 2 things. I like the idea of wound and kill triggers, but the problem comes is if me, Flo, and Lucas all go mob somebody, and let's say I'm playing a warrior with full plate, Lucas and Flo are both playing barbarians, and Lucas gets legged in the process of the mob, right? And we asked the guy which person was the killing blow, and he doesn't know. Like, he just got hit so many times he called dead.
Right.
Now it's up to him to tell us or us to decide, but if it's us to decide, we're just going to take the better one, right? So this is kind of weird. Also, I don't really like even though it would cause like a juggernaut situation, I think that's better than trying to have like, oh, I'm not in melee, I am in melee, oh, I'm not in melee kind of thing. Just to flat trigger it whenever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like
good on you if you can go mop the floor with an entire team because you were able to scavenge your way through or adrenaline your way through. Like, honestly, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, but the melee combat thing, I'm fighting you, I've got a javelin, and then is that still melee combat? We're 3 feet away. Is that
right? Yeah, like that's kind of where it gets weird too.
I think, yeah, like you said, it just should be wound or kill. Stop.
I mean, this is also a cultural thing that we could try to change. Whenever we get wounded or die, if we call who killed or wounded us, that would be a smoother transition for these kill triggers, and there's going to be more of them. More prevalent kill and wound triggers now. Yeah. And I think now we're going to move more to individual class updates.
Mm-hmm.
So Anti-Paladin, I love playing Anti-Paladin.
Anti-Paladin got buffed, dude.
And I feel like it's a major buff.
Anti-Paladin took SARMs, like, it's up there, dude.
I mean, let's talk about this too, because Teflon said way long time back that once the class was opened up to everyone would see how underpowered some of these classes were, because before you just didn't have enough people playing them. So I don't know whether this tipped the scales the other way, but I almost see this as a fulfillment of the prophecy that you made there, right?
Yeah, so here's the thing is that they enjoy the Javelin buff because they have access to him. Brutal Strike is now available. So here, I'll just go down the list of levels, I think. So Look the Park grants you Terror once per life, which is
good.
In theme. I think this is a better theming of Anti-Paladin as well. I think Sir Raven said more like an Eldritch Knight type thing, and I've always gotten like that kind of feel for it too.
I mean, Anti-Paladin isn't really a thing in other games, so Eldritch Knight, Death Knight, whatever.
I mean,
you know.
because of, I think, licensing issues or something like that. But
Sure.
so Terror once per life for Look the Part. You get your immune to Command and Flame at level 1. Poison once a life, EX, charge 3 at level 2. Steal Life Essence once a life, charge 5, magical. Level 4 is Brutal Strike once a life, charge 10. Level 5 is Terror once a life, magical. Also note that if it's magical, that means you need to open hand to cast. So that's also something that you'll need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And then level 6, this is the big up. Flame Blade twice a refresh instead
Busted.
of terrible ass undead minion.
Yeah.
Again, this is kind of like, I've always seen Anti-Paladin as like the loner, and this kind of sets him up as a way to kind of be a shock troop loner kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this is pretty good and in line with my, like, as Raven was saying, headcanon, and I think this is pretty good for it too. So things to note. Steal Life Essence will charge things, also heal you, I think. And so you can charge your poison, you could charge your Brutal Strike.
You could charge Steel.
You could charge your Steal Life, which is kind of the weird thing that'll come up with Assassin, because it's like a slightly worse Assassinate, but you have kind of a better way to enact it because you have more armor and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting. This is definitely, if it goes overtuned, I'm actually more okay, because, so people who kind of follow League of Legends or know what it is realize that a champion gets released and they are kind of overtuned, or they're overtuned to normal players so that they can sell the skins and the champion and make money and stuff.
Yeah,
but
get
honestly,
your Star Guardian skin now, because this champ's going to suck in 2 weeks.
I think overtuning something and then bringing it down is better than trying to build it back up, because I think you establish your design philosophy on an overtuned character better than you do a undertuned one. Which is, I think, what might happen here. Might.
Yeah, I mean, you find the limit early and then dial back instead of really
here's another
slowly.
weird thing, is that Anti-Paladin isn't exactly a counter to Paladin, because Terror doesn't affect them, but Terror still affects another Anti-Paladin, so maybe the answer is just more Anti-Paladins.
Just Anti-Paladins.
Which is kind of funny. So that'll be interesting. I don't want to spend a lot of time on each class, so I guess let's go on. Yeah,
that's fair. Wow, there's a lot of blank space in this, huh? Oh, what do we do? Come on, come back.
It's back to that.
It's a weird PD. Oh, he's making changes to it. Curse you, Craig! No, I'm kidding. You're doing a great job. I don't want to curse anybody. Let me just refresh this. Yeah, I don't know. When I think of Paladin or Anti-Paladin specifically, I almost think of like a Darth Vader mowing down the line and just slashing bitches, and
right?
Just, like, taking lives.
Archer has a buff that I think is quite on par.
Archer's buff is that they have to buy all new arrows.
Yeah, right. Well, okay, so that's the big debuff they got, right? But the minor buff is Mend is now rechargeable at charge 5. So instead of being like, cool, I mended my bow, well, I got shot or hit or something again. So hey, fellow caster buddy, can you mend my bow again? Thanks.
Yeah.
And alive. This makes them a little more able to be self-sufficient to some degree. So Assassin
pass.
Well, okay, so it didn't really get anything except the arrow problems, but because of Anti-Paladin, Paladin, and Barbarian and Monk getting some buffs, it may have gotten a passive debuff. It hasn't really changed, but the ups on the other ones may drop its power level.
Yeah.
And Anti-Paladin sort of encroaching on its territory may be interesting. We'll see, I think, how that one sets out. shakes out later on.
Well, it's a difference in playstyle, right? If you
Yeah.
prefer to strafe around the edges and snipe your kills and really target it, take out specific people in a very
Well, because of Monk, I'll get to it later, but because of Monk, there's another assassin stoppage issue. So
fair.
it's seeing some problems of being an okay class to a good class to maybe just a okay to if it's an A- now, it might be a C+, or if it's an A- currently in the playtest, it might become a C+, just because of the way other things shook out. So
Godric, give us a new tier list.
he kind of mentioned it a little bit.
Yeah.
So Barbarian is next, and holy shit. Barbarian,
exactly what we've deserved forever.
Okay,
Yeah, we
so
knew you were gonna like this on the
on
car ride
a
we were
large
talking about.
level, Barbarian basically ran out of their abilities at one point, right? And you were just kind of swords and armor, and
I think
hey,
they
we're
mentioned
good.
that in Godric's
Yeah,
video.
they do. They talk about basically playing a militia battle in a class game. But we have some changes. We got Looked Apart being an extra fight after death. Level 1, you still get your Berserk, Subdual, and a command immunity. Well, sorry, Subdual and command immunity and Berserk. Level 2 is your next fight after death. 3 is Adrenaline, which is unlimited, as per normal. But it is, again, affected by the Brutal Strike, Adrenaline, Blood and Thunder, and all that stuff. The Kill and Wound trigger buff. Fight after death, again, at 4. Brutal Strike is now once alive, charge 3 at 5. So that's a buff because you can recharge an ability for once, so you have something you can use and have something to do during a little bit of downtime.
Yep.
The big one, though, is Blood and Thunder EX at unlimited. Yeah, so I've always said that Barbarian was a kind of like a local park killer, especially since usually armor's not brought out and things like this.
Yeah, but they didn't scale.
Yeah, but they didn't scale. They become more of a local park killer with this Blood and Thunder unlimited thing, but they actually become more useful in a Kingdom Battle game. I'm really curious to see where this comes and shakes out. Also, gets the buff from javelins.
I also want to point out that remember the wound and kill triggers work at range,
Right.
not just with javelins.
Yeah, your
If you
rocks
throw a
might
rock-
be a thing now. I don't know.
I want to see barbarians with big rocks.
Bro, they pointed out the flurbiest people are sometimes barbarians, and getting them Blood and Thunders and Adrenalines from a really ridiculous throw from somewhere is going to be awesome.
I was picturing an almost like Looney Tunes style moment for where a shadow keeps growing and a rock just falls on one, and
Yes.
you hear from the distance, Blood and Thunder.
So,
Real quick,
go
before
ahead.
you get into Bard, because the first thing with Bard is some changing of language, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to point out a lot of these spell incants and spell phrases
yeah.
were changed to not use either gendered language or unnecessarily horny language.
Yeah.
Grasping tentacles, as an example, is now grasping vines.
No, it's Snaring Vines.
Snaring vines. It's still kind of horny, but it's not as
It's just viney now.
It's not as
Little
hentai
thorny.
haven as it was before. So we're not going to cover all of those. Just look up your spell incants. They have changed slightly to remove gendered language and unnecessarily horny language.
Yeah, so Song of Power is now, I sing to inspire my comrades in arms instead of brothers. So Awe, Terror, and Agoraphobia will not work against targets if you're dead. Insult, same. That's now, I command thy attention. No Sirah required, which I think is better overall, too.
Saying Sarah feels dumb anyway.
Yeah, it really did.
It was great when Sarah still played because it would be I command your attention, Sarah.
Yeah, right.
But that's about it.
The Song of Survival debuff was down. So this is the problem that the unlock happened. Bard kind of got a natural debuff with Paladin. Paladin's extend immunities also got buffed, so it's not just resistance, which is like a one-shot thing. So like if you were resistant to sorcery, I could shove you twice. The second shove takes effect. Now it's just straight up immunity that they extend, and it's command or death that they extend. So there's only really, if they got command, there's only one option that you can throw at another thing. But if they're already immune to death, you're kind of messed up.
Yep.
And
Scouts get adaptive protection
instead of blessing, so
Yeah.
they get actual immunity as well. So there's a power drop in Bard by accident in a way. I think we will see how that shakes out. Bards need a little bit of something, I think.
I mean, yeah, Bard is in a weird place, but it always has been.
Yeah.
So-
yeah. So Druid got
Removed from the game.
Yeah.
It's gone. Sorry, guys. Next healer.
No, Druid got a weird buff that will be.
Of course it did.
Yeah, no, I listen.
Fucking
I'm
Druid.
all about it, but at the same time, recognize this is a fucking problem. So Grasping Tentacles is now Snaring Vines. Snaring Vines now use 3 red strips and not 5, and is no longer stopped with this thing. So you can run around and hold people with a very short incant, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yep.
And then Essence Graft is now I enchant thee with Essence Graft instead of open up and receive my power. So
unnecessarily horny.
So that's probably for the best.
So thirsty of a spell.
Essence Graft no longer prohibits players from enchanting themselves with their own EX enchantments. Oh, that's a buff probably, I think. Corrosive Mist is now 3 red strips and no stops. Holy crap, Dyer, I think this is something for you because you can remove chest armor and then shoot them and they're dead.
Yeah. Also, arrow construction updates. Again. Yeah. Any class that uses arrows, you're going to have to look at the arrow updates.
Healer is a weird one. I don't think it's in a bad place, but it could be buffed. It's a
buff.
Weird mild. Yeah. I think Raven pointed out that you see a Priest Warder build. It may just go to Warder instead of Priest and Warder because Greater Harden, which is meh, now costs 1 spell point instead of 2. Adapting Blessing no longer has a maximum to it. Ancestral Armor is now only 1 point instead of 2. This is a good one, actually, this coming one. Imbue Shield grants 2 uses per purchase and has a limit of 2 purchases. So on base, you can get 4 total, which I think is good. There's also going to be a minor debuff, though, because there should be a lot more cursed players running around, but this is also a problem with cursed. If they don't know or remember that they're cursed from an ability, they're probably going to res them anyway, so this is probably nothing, sadly.
Yep.
Monk has some decently severe changes, actually. 4th level, you can heal other people, which is big. At level 1, you get your Heavy Throne. And your, let's see, so Looked Apart is heal once per life, range touch. Then other big changes, level 2, you have Banish now. This is what I was talking about having with Assassins. Banish makes insubstantial player go back to base. So they are basically set up to be kind of a backline support that it has some real melee capability. So this should be an interesting change.
Monk feels like a...
It's an almost powered down paladin, but they don't exactly feel the same spots. Because...
Yeah, I was going to say it's a more frontline healer.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. They have more they can do. Craig's changing it right now. What are you doing, Manama? Manamama.
Monster, they stole your anti-paladin, stole your sash, so you have to look like your garb now.
Or fight an anti-paladin for the sash.
Right.
I'm not ruling that out.
Yeah, arm wrestling maybe.
Oh yeah, I guess. That's
no, moss wrestling. Yeah. So if you don't know what that is, you need to. No. We need moss wrestling.
Oh, is it the Russian thing with the stick?
No, it's the board in the middle and with the stick, and then you have to pull them off the board. Yeah, it's definitely something we should bring to Amp Guard. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
So paladin here. Oh my god, paladin got huge. I think.
Yep.
So javelin buff. Extend immunities became actual immunity instead of the resistance, which again is only command or death, but still pretty big. Command is a big CC thing. So they now have greater heal once per life with as much more curse going around. That might become a really big deal. Yeah. Also, you can heal through your protection from magic because it's greater heal. You get greater res as well. Same kind of deal. Curses around, heal through your protection from magic.
Refresh.
Yeah. Greater heal is once per life, charge 3 magical, and greater resurrect is 2 per refresh magical. I think the rest is unchanged if I remember correctly.
Yeah, none of this is different. I guess.
But those greater heal and greater resurrects and the extend immunity is pretty big, I think.
Well, so what I feel like they did with both Paladin and Anti-Paladin is they made them feel more like what they're supposed to be. So like before, Anti-Paladin was just kind of like weird barbarian, and Paladin was just like different healer.
Not good cleric. Now it's good cleric, I think.
Yeah, like you don't have as
Again,
many...
both anti-paladin and paladin have 4 points of armor available to them as well.
Yeah, like paladin doesn't have as many supporting options as a healer, but the options they have are fucking powerful. And I think that's your holy light versus flash of light. Like you have 2 flashlights in your box to use.
Yeah.
Using World of Warcraft paladins as an example because that game ruined my life.
Mine too.
But those are the only 2 flashlights you have in your bag to use, right? So like they got to be good.
Yeah.
Scout, I don't know.
They got a minor buff with adaptive protection, which means they have the true immunity instead of the random resistance, which I think honestly resistance should go away.
You cannot stack your extraordinary enchantments, your adaptive protection. So you cannot have Golem on you as a scout adaptive protection, whatever, die, adaptive protection.
Oh yeah, this was a weird thing that was with that one. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Also, arrow changes still apply.
Yeah. So warrior is there, and javelins big up. Scavenge is again a kill trigger, so it is better, and you can kill him with a javelin and scavenge now too. Your insult ends if you die, and then it's changed to again, I command thy attention with no Surah added. So that's really the only changes in warrior. Warrior may see a minor debuff just because of the buff of the other ones.
Yeah.
And wizard, this is actually kind of a cool quality of life, I think, because Force Berry is a level 1 spell, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And it's now once per life instead of refresh, which the refresh was almost useless to buy the spell. Once per life for a possible protection is kind of good, especially since you're a forced 30-second down with the Force Barrier. A forced 30-second frozen, to be specific. So that gives a better usage of it, I think.
More survivability for cheap.
Yeah, and it's not for a refresh, it's per life, so I think it has a real use potentially now.
Yeah.
And I think that's
it. Those are all of the
yeah.
big changes. There may be a couple of small things that got skipped, but in general, that's the rundown for all the new classes. Again, plenty of people have done rundowns of these. These are just our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the breakdown from Gathering of the Crowns.
Yeah.
Well, cool. My class is more powerful. I'm happy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jeff's class is more powerful and was already the most powerful class in the game, which makes sense.
I'm kind of branching out to anti-paladin. I was branching out before this, by the way.
Yeah, I mean.
But now it's got me even more excited to actually lay down some armor and get it geared up.
Yeah.
So and Lucas got some side grades.
It's a bard, whatever. I've also been branching into anti-paladin and paladin, just kind of like when I show up, I pick one of the two and throw the credit in.
That's fair.
But yeah, I think that wraps it up. Make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Make sure to like this video, share it with your friends if you thought it was good.
Hey, try this
Man Brand,
the Man Brand
Balm.
beard oil.
You still smell like a cigar box.
I'm down for it.
And fart.
I don't know about that one.
Okay. That's no fault of the Man Brand, to be clear. Man Brand is great. Jeff's fart's not so good. Be sure to subscribe to our Patreon if you want to support the podcast and, help us buy stuff like new pop filters and SD cards and just stuff we need to make the podcast happen.
Why don't you tell everyone where the pop filter that's supposed to be on my mic right now is?
It's in my gym bag, and I worked out today, but I didn't bring my gym bag because it was chest.
Yeah, I'm going to get athlete's lips.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Also,
are they just strong?
Yeah, they're just very muscular. It's like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure lips.
Yeah. Also, huge thanks to Sume, who edits these podcasts.
Oh, big thanks, man.
Saving my life. Again, we're going to have him on the podcast here soon, I think, just to let everybody meet him and get to know him. But he's a great editor. Huge thanks to him as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else that we need to throw out there?
I can't think of anything.
I think we're good to go.
All right, go to keep. Bye, guys. Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube or Spotify to get notified about new episodes. And make sure to follow us on Facebook for announcements and more.